I'm here today at the RSPCA approved cause walk to make people aware about how the RSPCA doesn't care about farm animals. And this beautiful lady's just come up to me, and we're talking about the egg farm that she used to work in. Are we close enough to here? Yeah.
My name's Melly.
Hi Melly.
And I lived up in King Lake Mountain, and I got a job for a very short time because they sacked me. I was artificially inseminating the chickens, and it was for the flu vaccine. I saw the cruelty, and they had about maybe 12-15 chickens shoved in this little small cage, and if the chicken got out, there was a little lime underneath and it would go down and it would burn to death. So in my lunch hour I would get the chickens out of the lime and try and save them. Well, anyway, they ended up sacking me because of this. And the free range big shed, so-called free range, there were just a million chickens in there, and they were just in a shed. I didn't have any room to move. And I felt so bad that I went and let all the chickens out, and all the chickens escaped into the forest. Anyway, I rang up and reported it, and before I let the chickens out, the organisation that had this chicken farm said to all the people and put extra people on to separate all the chickens, so when they got inspected there was only X amount of chickens, the legal amount, in a cage, and it was it was probably down to about 6 chickens, and there's probably about 15 in a cage.
Yeah, which is pretty standard, as you were saying, because I know from first-hand experience of people who've reported cruelty going on in farms, and farmers getting tipped off before the RSPCA inspectors turn up, and that's because the biggest funders of the RSPCA sadly is the Farmers Union. So when anyone does report animal cruelty in farms, they get a tip off to sort it out, and this lady who worked obviously in the chicken farm was her work got tipped off that they were, because a cage is about this big and you get about 6 chickens in there, and that's quarter of an A4 size piece of paper to live on. And this lady, what was you saying, about 15 birds?
About 15 chickens. They couldn't move, they wouldn't have been able to eat or drink. It was absolute cruel, and they just would die in the lime, burned to death. Yeah. It was terrible.
And it's so sad that, if you're working on a farm and you are the caretaker of these animals and you are fired for taking care of them.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So they're going to have a slow, painful death, burning slowly, and then you're like, this lady, it just says it all.
It was total cruelty.
Yeah.
And the fact that they got the information that I called straight away, the next day they knew that someone had made a phone call, because, as I said, they employed extra amount of staff just to separate the chickens into smaller amounts in a cage.
Yeah. See, and I can't express that enough. I've seen this happen before. There was a case in Western Australia where a farmer was putting more than the allowed number of birds into cages, and they also had an electric fence at the bottom of the cage for the chickens, so that was to minimise the amount of food and water the birds could actually eat and drink. And while we were in there were birds that had burnt their eyeballs out from trying to get food. And then when it was reported to the RSPCA, they gave the tip off to the farmer before the inspector turned up. Now I truly do believe that people who work for the RSPCA do care about animals. I've even got a very close friend of mine who's like a sister who works for the RSPCA taking cruel complaints. But the fact of the matter is, RSPCA really do not care about animal welfare issues regarding farm animals, and they certainly don't care about their liberation or their rights to live without with unnecessary cruelty. And so thank you so much for sharing your.
And thank you for educating me, because I'll never eat an egg again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Give me a squeeze. Thank you.
You're a good child.
Yeah. That's a puppy. What's your name?
This is Max.
Max. Hi, Max. Hello, little puppy. What's your name? Have a hug. You don't have to hug me if you don't want to, though. Yeah, cool.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.